If there were to be a red wave on Tuesday, it would probably be because of inflation and the overall economy. A new poll shows 51% say it will be the key issue on their vote. Brand new census data showing some 29 million households have been unable to pay their energy bills this past year. Cold winter weather and rising utility costs will only worsen what has now become a crisis. Those numbers also show 43 million households cut back spending on groceries, medicine, and doctor's visits so they could settle an energy bill. Contributing to what could be a Democrat shellacking, I think Obama coined that term. Right. The research found more families struggling in red states. Voters in blue areas like Washington, D.C., Vermont, and Delaware were least affected. Tammy Bruce, Fox News contributor, host of Get Tammy Bruce on Fox Nation. Talk to me about the difference in what's happening in those different political party states.
Well, you're looking at, I think, for everyone in the country, first of all, it's the 21st century. It's the United States of America that anyone is having a problem with heating oil or being able to warm their homes is shameful, and it's shocking, and it's heartbreaking. No one deserves that. But this is also an economic dynamic where the larger you have a state, like with Texas, you're going to have, I think, much more of a parameter when it comes to the poor, people who are struggling, right? Different economic stratas are involved. And so these are issues that affect, of course, first people who are struggling already anyway, the poor, the lower middle class, people who in fact have not recovered from the pandemic, whom perhaps lost their business. And I think that that's one of the major issues. And, you know, the Democrats seem, it's almost like, it's not like they've forgotten. It's almost as though they don't care because there's something larger for them, which is their imagined nirvana when it comes to green energy or whatever. People don't matter anymore. And that is what is, I think, shocking.
I had another thought.
Yes, ma'am.
And it's a question after the president's speech last night.
Yeah.
He told us who's important to him, and they're not Republicans. That's not who's important to him.
That's a very good point.
So if red states are struggling, not only does he not see their problems, I don't know that he cares about them enough. Why? Because he said that if you voted Republican, you would break the American democracy as we know it.
Yeah, it's remarkable. It was almost like a do-over.
I'm just going based on what he says.
It was almost a do-over of the Philadelphia debacle, where he coined the semi-fascist framework for Republicans or those who supported President Trump. And now it was, you know, a threat to democracy. And how do you mean that it's not all Republicans? The majority of Republicans do like President Trump.
That's a great question.
You know, and it's like, so of course it moves into that framework. So it's tens of millions of Americans. And then you do start dividing the country between red and blue states. And that is, you want to talk about a threat to democracy. It is demonizing half of the country. There's only one person and one part of, you know, the politics doing that, and that's the Democrats. Yeah. So it's a shame.
And my question about whether or not that feeds into an election and the intensity, we won't know until after Tuesday. But I can tell you, early voting in Georgia is set to break its own record. It is presidential-like. I mentioned that. It's on. As of yesterday, the total number of early ballots cast passed the 2 million mark. 1.9 million voting in person. The final number expected to double the early turnout in 2018. Certainly flies in the face. Remember this?
Jim Crow 2.0 is about two insidious things: voter suppression and election subversion.
The 21st century Jim Crow assault is real. It's unrelenting. It is the most pernicious thing. This makes Jim Crow look like Jim Eagle.
That sounds so ignorant now when you consider how many people have voted. House Republicans, though, don't care about the texture of that. They want an apology. They want, it's based on the words.
Well, and good for them, because you got to stand up for yourselves, because that is a smear of the entire a political party of the Republicans and people who would vote for Republicans.
We have a letter up on the screen right now from Republicans, and I just want to put that back up if we can. I apologize, Tammy, let me get this in.
Please.
In a letter to President Biden himself, they say, quote, in the interest of ensuring American voters may have confidence in election processes and outcomes, we demand you immediately cease spreading election misinformation. Rescind your previous statements and apologize to the American public. Tammy.
Yeah, it's treating also, in particular in the South, people of color as though they're infants, as though they can't manage daily events like registering to vote, having an ID, being able to go and vote. And Americans are seeing this on every issue, from the energy crisis to inflation to how the pandemic was handled. And now they're being told they know how they're going to vote. They've got their voting book. They know they've been voting. They know where to vote. They know how to put something in the mail. And it's insulting to everyone. And I think that the Democrats now have hit that wall where every voter, regardless of your party, are recognizing that this is not normal, that is manipulative, it's insulting, it's infantilizing the voting public in general, and it is not good. Not good for democracy, but you want confidence. And I do think because of these new rules, that one of the reasons why there's more voting is because you want more confidence knowing your vote's going to count. It's not going to be erased by a non-citizen voting or by shenanigans that change the voting totals. And that's what we've been able to build, is more confidence, so you see more participation.
Well, and after Election Day, we'll be able to ask Democrats who made the decision not to vote what kept them from voting. I mean, that kind of rhetoric backfires on your own party potentially if all you're saying is, we don't know how this is going to turn out. This could be terrible. Well, Democrats could just sit down. All right, let's move. A liberal meltdown. The New York Times dared to report the truth on the president's recent gaffes in a piece titled, Biden Verbally Fumbles Twice During Campaign Trip to Florida. Well, he did. The article referenced moments like this.
Inflation is a worldwide problem right now because of a war in Iraq and the impact on oil and what Russia's doing. The war in Ukraine. And thinking of Iraq because that's when my son died. Because he died. But the point is that that's why it's up.
And 2 times later, he was still cleaning up that part about where his son died, because his son did not die in Iraq. The president explained why he would. I mean, it was a mess. Anyway, the left is losing it overall. The coverage, though, in the New York Times, they say they're trying to destroy us. This is on Twitter. Another called the criticism problematic. And this one, grow up. Conservatives getting a kick out of it all. A campaign staffer for Governor Ron DeSantis in Florida wrote, Dems mad that a reporter reported something unflattering about dear leader. Tammy.
Well, it tells you, first of all, they were actually very careful, the New York Times. Like fumbles, verbally fumbles. Joe Biden is known for this. He's known for plagiarism. He's known for making things up. He's known for lying. He's known for massaging the truth. This is who he is. So they should be grateful that the New York Times tried to make it like he tripped over a log, which he didn't. So we've seen this all the time. But the reaction is also what reveals that the base expects censorship. They don't want transparency. They don't want an honest discussion about what really happens in front of people's faces. This explains this new kind of obsession with don't let people talk about it because it hurts them. That is also where democracy dies, is when you are not allowed to talk about the truth. Democrats deserve the truth. People who are liberals deserve the truth. We all love this country. And right now there's a small group of people who are trying to keep us divided and keep us from being able to talk. That's going to change, I hope.
I thought that last tweet, though, said it all. Grow up.
Yeah.
Maybe
right.
For them.
Yeah, for them. Look, this is, everybody knows who Joe Biden is. The Democrats should be able to survive the truth. And then that's the only thing that will allow them to be able to adapt to what happens in November and in 2024.
Tammy Bruce, great to have you in focus.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Hey, everyone. I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.